The Alien War Council chamber was filled with light and noise. Large hologram screens floated in the air, showing images from the recent battle. Human cities burned, towers collapsed, fires spread across the ground like glowing rivers, smoke covered the skies. Alien commanders stood tall and proud. Some laughed, some shared victory signals. Others spoke about resources gained and territory secured. To them, it was a clean victory. At the center of the room stood General Cathrex. He was old. His armor was scarred from many wars. He had defeated dozens of species. He had ended rebellions and crushed empires. His name alone once caused planets to surrender. He did not celebrate. Cathrex watched the screens in silence. A report scroll opened in front of him. Numbers, casualties, damage, success rates. Everything was marked as acceptable. Then a junior officer stepped forward. "General," the officer said proudly, "the raid was completed as planned. All resistance was neutralized. Civilian relocations were also successful." Cathrex's head slowly lifted. "Civilian," he repeated calmly. The officer nodded. "Yes, General." Cathrex's eyes narrowed slightly. He asked, very quietly, "Define civilian." The officer hesitated for a moment, then answered confidently. "Non-combatants were removed from underground shelters. Resistance was crushed. Productive units were separated. Offspring units were taken for labor reassignment and education." The room remained relaxed. Several commanders nodded. This was standard procedure. This was how wars were always done. Cathrex did not move. He let the words settle in the air. Then he asked again, slower this time, "Were any human children taken?" The room changed. The lights seemed dimmer. The sounds stopped. Even the holograms felt distant. No one spoke. No one moved. The junior officer swallowed. "Yes, General," he said, "several hundred." For the first time in decades, Cathrex's claws trembled. Not from anger, from fear. He turned away from the screens. Long ago, when Cathrex was still young, his first commander had warned him about humans, not with hatred, not with pride, with concern. Humans forgive insults. Humans endure pain. Humans retreat when logic demands it. But the warning had ended with a different tone. Humans do not forgive harm to their young. Cathrex remembered the stories. A mining outpost destroyed because one child died. A trade fleet erased after a refugee ship was attacked. A war that lasted 30 years because someone thought human families were weakness. He had believed those stories were exaggerated, until now. "End all celebrations," Cathrex said suddenly. The commanders turned toward him in surprise. "General?" one asked. "This was a victory." Cathrex's voice was low. This was a mistake. Outside the chamber, alerts began to sound. One distress signal, then another, then hundreds. Human frequencies, civilian channels, emergency codes. Messages flooded the system. Missing children, taken during evacuation. No response from alien command. Cathrex watched the data climb faster and faster. Human worlds were waking up. Parents were asking questions. Soldiers were listening. Old veterans were standing again. The general felt something he had not felt in centuries. Not doubt, not regret, fear. Because Cathrex knew one truth that the galaxy always learned too late. When humans believe their children are gone, they do not ask who is right. They ask who must be destroyed. And this time, the question had already been asked. General Cathrex stood alone in the quiet command chamber. The war council had ended. The celebrations were gone. The room now felt heavy, like it was waiting for something bad to arrive. Cathrex opened the classified archives. These files were old. Some were sealed after great losses. Others were never meant to be read again. They were reports about one species only: humans. The general remembered the first time his empire met them. They were weak. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were simple. Their bodies broke easily under pressure. Other species feared monsters, machines, and ancient races. No one feared humans. At first, Cathrex read the old reports carefully. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest, but they were strange. One report showed a battlefield recording. Human soldiers moved forward under heavy fire. Many were injured. Some were scared. But around their necks, inside their armor, and taped to their weapons were small images, pictures of children. Another report described human troops before a final charge. The recording had no battle orders, no war cries, only whispers, names, children's names, wives, sons, daughters. Cathrex remembered how that battle ended. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded. They still won. The general scrolled deeper. There were reports of humans crossing radioactive zones to rescue injured children, knowing they would die later from the exposure. There were recordings of humans fighting predators 10 times their size, using broken tools and bare hands, refusing to retreat while a child was behind them. One archive showed a peaceful alien world. The report ended in one sentence: "World declared inhabitable after human retaliation." The reason was listed clearly. A human child was harmed during a relocation. Cathrex closed the file slowly. He finally understood what others never had. Humans did not fight for power. They did not fight for glory. They did not fight for conquest. They fought for people. And when those people were taken, humans did not stop. Far away, on Earth and human colonies, the truth was spreading. Parents checked shelters, schools, emergency stations. Children were missing. Human networks flooded with messages, names, photos, last known locations. Governments tried to control the panic. They failed. Old soldiers opened sealed lockers. Armor was pulled from storage. Weapons were repaired by shaking hands that remembered war too well. Retired commanders received messages with one word: "Come back." In deep space, human shipyards activated systems that had not been used in years. The fleet that formed was not impressive. Small ships, old designs, outdated weapons. But every ship had one thing in common: they were crewed by humans who had nothing left to lose. Cathrex watched long-range sensors light up. The human fleet was moving, slow, silent, focused. The general turned to his officers. "Raise all defenses," he ordered. "Activate every station." The officers obeyed, but their confidence was gone. Cathrex stared at the star map. For the first time in his long career,
He felt something slipping from his grasp. Control. Because he now understood the truth that the galaxy always learned too late. Humans could lose wars. They could lose worlds. They could lose their own lives. But when their children were taken, they never lost the will to destroy everything in their way. And this time, they were coming. The alien empire waited for negotiations. That was how wars usually continued. The humans would send messages. They would demand meetings. They would ask for compromises. No message came. Instead, the first attack hit a supply route. Cargo ships vanished without warning. Fuel stations went dark. Food convoys stopped arriving at border worlds. The Empire assumed it was a mistake.
The final report arrived without alarms. That alone frightened General Cathrax. He stood in the central command hall as the data unfolded before him. Star maps shifted. Defense lines glowed red. Warning markers posed closer and closer to the Imperial capital. A human strike force was approaching. It was not large. It was not fast. But every system it passed went silent. Cathrax read the attached message. Only one line. Return our children. No negotiations. No threats, no conditions, no fear. The War Council gathered in panic. They are bluffing, one commander said. Their fleet is outdated, another argued. We can crush them at the capital, a third insisted. Cathrax listened. Then he spoke. If this continues, he said quietly, the Empire will fall. The council turned toward him in shock. We still have fleets, someone protested. Cathrax shook his head. Fleets do not matter when the enemy will not stop. He activated a projection. Worlds that resisted were marked dark. Worlds that complied still shone. This is not a war, Cathrax said. This is a search. The council demanded counterattacks. They demanded punishment. They demanded pride. Cathrax demanded survival. Against the will of the council, he issued orders that would change the Empire forever. All human children are to be returned immediately, he commanded. Gasps filled the chamber. Provide full medical aid, food, shelter, care. The council shouted in protest. Cathrax raised his voice. Any commander responsible for their capture will surrender to human forces. Silence followed. The order spread through the Empire in minutes. Prisons opened, transports reversed course, medical stations prepared for arrivals. The human fleet did not slow. Cathrax knew why. They would not trust words, only actions. The general requested a direct communication channel to the human strike force. It took time. Then the screen lit up. A human commander appeared. He looked tired. His uniform was worn. There were marks on his face from long days without rest, but his eyes were clear. Cathrax expected anger, hate, threats. None came. This is General Cathrax of the Imperial Command. Your children are being returned, all of them, Cathrax said. The human commander said nothing. We are providing medical care, and we are surrendering those responsible, Cathrax continued. Still no response. Finally, the human spoke. His voice was calm. You should have asked what humans value most before you touched it, he said slowly. No shouting, no insults, just truth. Cathrax felt the weight of his mistake crush him. He lowered his head, a gesture no alien general had ever given to an enemy. The human commander watched in silence. Then the transmission ended. Cathrax stood alone in the chamber. The Empire was saved, but something else had changed. From that moment on, Cathrax knew one law would echo across the galaxy. You may defeat humans in battle. You may outnumber them. You may even break their worlds. But if you take their children, you face something no empire survives. The return began quietly. Human transport ships crossed the stars, not as war fleets, but as guardians. Inside them were children, tired, scared, and alive.
When the first ships reached human space, there were no cheers, there were tears. Parents ran across landing fields. Some fell to their knees. Others stood frozen, afraid to believe it was real. Children were pulled into arms that would never let go again. Doctors worked without rest. Soldiers stood watch in silence. No one spoke of victory. The war ended without treaties, without ceremonies, without signatures. It ended because the purpose was complete. The children were home. The human fleet did not chase the retreating empire. It did not demand territory. It did not ask for payment. It simply stopped. Across the alien empire, shock turned into reflection. Worlds that survived opened their records. Commanders studied the damage. Entire campaigns were erased from history, replaced with warnings. The imperial military doctrine was rewritten. For the first time, a single species shaped galactic law without firing a final shot. The new rules were simple. Never target human civilians. Never separate human families. Never test human mercy again. These rules were taught in academies, engraved into command codes, whispered as cautionary tales. General Cathrax sat alone in his private chamber. The war was over, but his thoughts were heavy. He activated a personal log. "This is General Cathrax' final entry," he began. He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Humans are not dangerous because of their weapons," he said slowly. "They are dangerous because of their love." He remembered the recordings, the soldiers who shielded children, the pilots who did not retreat, the commanders who refused to leave anyone behind. "Love gives them endurance," Cathrax continued. "Love gives them focus. Love removes fear." He ended the log and closed his eyes. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Not as propaganda, not as legend, as instruction. Young officers learned it early. If you wish to defeat humans, do not touch their children. If you wish to survive them, protect them. Some species listened, some did not. Those who ignored the lesson disappeared quietly from history. Human worlds returned to peace. Children went back to schools. Families rebuilt homes. Scars remained, but they healed together. Monuments were raised not for battles, but for reunions. No statues of generals, no banners of conquest, only names. The names of children who came home. In the deep dark between stars, General Cathrax looked at the galaxy map one last time. He understood now. Humans did not rule through fear. They ruled through something stronger, a promise. And every species that lived among the stars learned to respect it. The galaxy grew silent, not because of peace, but because no one dared forget the price of breaking that promise. And in that silence, there was fear.